The app we're going to build in this section focuses on passing data from UIKit up to SwiftUI via a coordinator and delegates. If those words didn't mean anything to you, we're going to dive into it. But as you can see on the screen here, what the app does, it's a barcode scanner. So we utilize the camera. This is what's not in SwiftUI yet. This is why we have to integrate UIKit to use the camera. So, we'll just scan a barcode and we'll display the barcode that we saw. So as you can imagine, the barcode and any potential errors, that is the data that we're passing from UIKit up to SwiftUI so we can display it on the screen. And again, we'll pass that data from UIKit to SwiftUI using UI View Controller Representable and coordinators. In this first video, we're just going to set up the UI, but a lot of this is stuff we've done before. So here's what the UI is going to look like, this dummy UI, right? It's not going to be connected. But if you want to pause the video, take a shot at building that yourself, now's your chance. We're going to go through this real quick here in a second. Two things of note, if you are going to try this on your own, I am going to rename the content view to barcode scanner view, so just a heads up. And then there's one UI element that we haven't talked about, just a little hint there. So there's one new thing, but you may be able to figure it out. If not, we're going to build it together right now. So that's your last chance to pause the video if you want to try it yourself. Right now we're doing file in Xcode, obviously. New project, and it's an iOS app. In the app, hit next, barcode scanner. And again, interface SwiftUI, lifecycle SwiftUI app, language Swift, hit next. Save it wherever you like. I'm saving it to my desktop. And I'm going to hold Option, hit the green dot right there to make it full screen. Let's resume our preview. Let's get rid of our right pane. Again, this is the typical setup we've been doing. And here we are. Well, preview's not ready yet, but that will get ready. There it is. And okay, I don't know why it defaults to iPod 7th generation. Like who even has that? We'll go to the iPhone 12 Pro to get that set up. We'll minimize it so it doesn't look super huge. Drag this over. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this content view. Now, this is why I like putting out these videos as I go, because I got a comment talking about the rename thing, and I know about this feature, right? You remember me going on my rant how I just delete the file and create a new one. I'm gonna try to adopt and change. We'll see if this burns me, but we're gonna try the rename here. So I'll also show you what's going on. So if you click into the content view and right click, you can see refactor, rename, and then you get the code folding. This was new in Xcode 9. Like I remember doing the what's new in Xcode and like talking about this. But I guess what I didn't realize, like I knew it changed the name throughout it, but if you look up here, it changes the actual file name, right? You see right there, file name. So that is what the commenter pointed out that I wasn't aware of, because that's what caused the file pathing issues. Okay, I know I'm going on a bit of a side rant, but let's just do this, call this barcode scanner view. And right, you see it's renaming it in my previews. In my window group, this is the app, right, where we have to tell it what view shows first, and it's updating the file. This is the key new thing that I wasn't aware of, that it updates the file name. So in the upper right, you can hit rename, and there you go. And look, yeah, our file got renamed, our struct got renamed, our preview got renamed, and then again, in the app file here, that got renamed, that got renamed. So nice feature. We'll see if I get burned on file pathing. I'm assuming I'm not going to, so maybe I'll have changed my ways and learned something new as well by doing this course. So anyway, little tip there. Now this is the dummy UI I'm gonna build because we're gonna put a placeholder in for the camera view. We're gonna hook all that up later, but just to get the structure, we're gonna build this. Again, this is what I put up earlier. I am gonna go a little bit quicker through this UI because hopefully this is a lot of review by now. So I like to start, here's the text, right? I know I'm gonna have a navigation view. So I kind of like to work my way, right? Like the top view, and I like to work my way down, right? So there's the navigation view. If I spell it right, put the A in there. Navigation view, cool. Try again on the preview. The preview always tells on you, like when you mess stuff up. Try again. Okay, preview, whatever. Okay, so in the navigation view, I know I'm going to have a VStack, right? If we pull up the screen again, you can see just how the elements are. It's going to be a VStack. So now my VStack, cool. And then on this VStack, I can put my .navigation title, and this is barcode scanner. There we go. Again, I'm working top down just to let you know my thought process and like what's going on in my head right now. So the next thing down is the dummy camera view. SwiftUI has what's called shapes. So I can just do rectangle, right? And it'll draw me just a square, basically, as you can see. But we don't want the whole camera view filling up because we want to be able to display the barcode once we get it. Now, of course, you could redesign this however you like. Maybe you do want the camera view filling up the entire phone screen and you want to overlay the label on it. after we build this, come back and play with the design. If you like, you can play around with this, but we're going to keep this just kind of like a window on part of the phone. So we want to give this a frame. Now here's where it's a little bit different, right? So frame has width height. We're used to doing that. Well, if we click into frame, command click, jump to definition, you can see this is the initializer we've been using, right? Frame, height, alignment. Well, if we go down, you can see an extension here that has this frame: min width, ideal width, max height, right? There's a much more robust initializer on frame, and that's the one we're going to use here. So let's go back. So we can do max width. I'm not going to do the whole initializer because I'm going to have to delete it. Again, this is part of the what you'll realize with SwiftUI. You'll kind of start to learn these initializers, and you'll only just type out what you need. Because if you do autocomplete, I would have got 7 parameters there, and I would have had to delete them. It would have just taken longer. So we're gonna do 300 there. Now here's the difference, right? Okay, let me explain this as I go. So I put max height 300 because that's as tall as I want it to be, right? Width is gonna be dynamic. I want it to fill the whole screen. But height, I only want it to be a certain height no matter what screen we're on, right? A barcode is only so big. So max width though, you can do dot infinity. And what this means is it will just fill the screen, as you can see. However wide the screen is, it'll fill. So we have max width infinity, max height 300. You can see it's centered on the screen because that's kind of the default behavior of the VStack. It does look a little lower than centered, and the reason why is because our navigation bar in the title is taking up a chunk. So if you imagined an imaginary line under the barcode scanner, now that space would be centered in. So again, it is centered, but if it looks lower than centered, it's because of our nav title. Okay, so the next thing we want is the words underneath the camera view that say scan label, kind of like our label. Spoiler alert, we're going to use a label to do that. I couldn't think of a different word other than label. So now this is the new element that I talked about, and this is also new in iOS 14. So you now have a label element, and once I put this in, I'll tell you what it is, right? So it takes in a string and an image name, you can see on the right. So that would be if we had an image in our bundle, or it takes a system image name, which is a SF symbol, this is probably the more common one because it's very common now to have a little icon in a label, which is what we're doing here. So the string we want is scanned barcode, right? Because we're going to put the barcode under this. And the system image, remember this is an SF symbol. So open up your SF symbols here. I already got it open. And just search for barcode. And you see we get just a normal barcode and then a barcode in a viewfinder. We're going to use the barcode in a viewfinder. So again, Command-Shift-C to copy that. Let's go back to Xcode. We will paste this string into there. So see, barcode.viewfinder, and then you can see it's real small down there, but you can see that's what a label is. So a label is like a little icon and then words. And as you know, that is a very common pattern in a lot of apps. So that's why SwiftUI just built it into one UI element called label, because it was so common. Now, label we can treat just like a text. So we can do font title because we want that to be a little bigger. So let's do dot font, and we're going to make this dot title, right? So there you go. That's how big it is. Now, the last element we need is where we're actually going to display our barcode. Well, if you see in the example, it'll say not yet scanned. And then when we scan, it'll flip to the barcode. We'll set that up later. We're kind of just setting up the structure of our UI. So we'll put some dummy data in there. So this is just the text. And for now, not yet scanned because we are going to use that. And as you saw in the design, I do want this to be big, bold, bright, you can't miss it. So we're going to do dot bold and then dot font large title. We want this to be big. You can see it down there. It's already big and bold. And then we can do dot foreground color, dot green for now. Again, as you saw in the design, it's going to be red at first. When we get a successful scan, we're going to flip it to green. And then lastly, it's a little tight right there. So let's add some padding. There you go. We're letting it breathe a little bit. Now, one thing you may notice, and this is getting kind of nitpicky on the design, it's pushed down a little lower. Now, in the previous design, we were using spacers, right? To push stuff all the way to the top or push stuff all the way to the bottom. We're not using any spacers yet. So everything's kind of huddled around the center of the screen, right? It's the center of gravity. Everything's pinned to the center. It's not going to pin to the top or bottom unless we push it there with a spacer. We're not going to do that, but I wanted to point out the differences in the structure of the UI. We are going to use a spacer, however, to add some space in between our camera view and our titles down here. So let's do that. So after the rectangle, let's go spacer, right? Now this is not going to be what we want, but I want to illustrate what the spacer does. It just pushes everything up or down. It just takes up all the remaining space essentially. But you can customize your spacers a little bit, right? So that's just the regular spacer. We can give our spacer a frame. So I can do dot frame, And width, I don't care about the width. We're only worried about the height. So get rid of that. And then the height, let's make it 30. And again, I dialed these numbers in. Get rid of this here. You know what? That still looks a little bit too low. Let's do 50 and maybe even 60. You can see how it's like moving up. Let's do 80. It's like slowly like moving up as we do that. So you can tweak that and dial it in. Let's go back to 60. That's fine. The camera's kind of centered a little above. That's what we want. So that's our UI in place. Again, we just have this random rectangle, this black thing as like a placeholder for our camera view. We'll replace that in time. But speaking of the camera view, one thing I want to make sure we do before we forget is to update our privacy settings to give us permission to use the camera. Because if you don't do this, your app's going to crash. Or if you somehow manage it not to crash, it'll get rejected from the App Store. So anyway, in your info.plist, type in, or hit this plus button here. Just type in privacy, it's kind of searching, and you can see like, this is where you ask for all your permissions, right? If you want to get location permission, photos permission, contacts permission. In this case, we're going to do camera permission. So you can see it's right here, camera usage. So there you go. Now you have to give it a string, and this is what pops up in the alert. So we'll say we need to use the camera to scan barcodes. Pretty straightforward, but you have to have this in your plist or else when you try to access the camera, bad things are going to happen. So back to our barcode scanner view, our UI is in place. In the next video, we're going to start setting up our camera view controller, which is again down in UIKit. So if you're not familiar with UIKit, this may be new to you. If you are familiar with UIKit, this will be a nice little going back home a little bit, but that's what we're going to do in the next video.